6-year-old Benny Alden lay on the floor of the Greenfield Public Library. He was coloring a huge poster.
"How's it coming, Benny?"
asked Violet, his 10-year-old sister. She was holding a poster of her own, which she'd just finished. She gently waved it so the ink would dry.
"Okay,"
Benny replied.
"What do you think?"
He leaned back so Violet could have a look. The words were big and bold, printed clearly in black on the heavy white paper. "Tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, come and meet Gilbert Finch, author of The Young Adventurers series for children, at the Greenfield Library." Benny's sister, Jessie, who was 12, had actually written the words. Benny was still learning to read and write, but he did add little drawings of Mr. Finch's books. The Aldens loved Gilbert Finch's books. Each one was set in some faraway place, and the main characters were always children who found themselves in exciting situations.
"It looks great, Benny,"
Violet said.
"I like the little books you drew around the outside. I'll bet Mr. Finch will like it, too." "I still can't believe he's coming here," said Jessie. She was coloring another poster. "He has so many fans, and yet he's coming to our library."
"And all we had to do was ask him,"
added Henry. At 14, he was the oldest of the children.
"Violet's idea to simply write him a letter was great."
Violet smiled.
"The worst he could do was say no."
But Finch hadn't said no. He'd written back to the Aldens right away and said he'd be delighted to visit their library. His latest book, The Lost Chamber of Gold, was an exciting story set in the jungles of Brazil. Mr. Finch had been visiting other libraries and bookstores all over the country.
"A lot of people will be here to see him tomorrow night,"
Jessie pointed out.
"Mrs. Connolly said as many as 100. "Maybe even more,"
said Mrs. Connolly, who walked into the room at that moment. She was the head librarian and knew the Aldens well.
"I just got off the phone with Ms. Pollock over at the elementary school. She's asking everyone in her class to come." "Wow,"
Benny said. Ms. Connolly walked around to see everyone's posters.
"They look very nice," she said. "Where will you put them?" "All over," said Violet. "Anywhere they'll be seen by a lot of people. The supermarket, the bank, the school," Jessie added.
"The gas station,"
Henry continued.
"And the train station," Benny said. "Don't forget that."
The Alden children were very familiar with trains. After their parents died, they learned that their grandfather was coming to get them. They heard he was mean, so they tried to hide from him. They picked an abandoned boxcar as their hiding place. When grandfather finally found them, they soon realized he wasn't mean at all. The children went back to Greenfield with him. Then grandfather arranged to have their boxcar brought along too. It was set up in the backyard where they could play in it any time they wished. When Benny mentioned the station, it reminded Jessie of something very important. She checked her watch and said, "We'd better get over there soon. Mr. Finch will be arriving in less than an hour."
"Oh, that's right," Violet added. "He called here earlier to let us know he was getting on the train."
Mr. Finch had agreed to come to Greenfield the day before his appearance, so he could have dinner with the Alden children and their grandfather. He'd also said something about wanting to see a friend, but he didn't say who it was.
"Good luck,"
Miss Connolly said as she left the room. The Aldens finished the posters and bundled them together in a neat pile. They would hang them around town as they walked to the station. As they headed for the door, they noticed someone standing by a display of Gilbert Finch's books. He was an older man with unruly hair. He wore a pair of small, round glasses, and his shirt wasn't tucked in. The children had arranged the book display the night before, and they were very proud of it. This strange man, however, didn't seem very impressed. Instead, he was moving the books around so that they were harder to see. He turned them so only the backs were showing. And then he took some other books off the shelf and put them up in front of Finch's books. While he was doing this, he kept peering around the corner of the nearest bookshelf. It seemed as though he was worried about Miss Connolly catching him. When the man was done ruining the display, he walked away quietly.
"What was that all about?"
Henry said.
"I don't know," Jessie replied, "but it was pretty odd."